Super Sensitives. This is Amber from amberrochelle.com, and today I want to talk to you guys about fear versus intuition. So this is a question that I got asked by a client the other day that I thought was so interesting and profound, and I had not really thought of it recently, but it's such a good, important question. So she asked me, how do you know when it's your fear talking or it's your intuition talking? So, for example, people always say the phrase feel the fear and do it anyways, right? But what if it's not fear? What if it's your intuition that's cautioning you not to do something? And in that case, of course, you shouldn't do it, as opposed to where if it's fear that's holding you back from expansion or from forward movement, in which case you should challenge the fear and do it. So, this is a particularly interesting question for sensitives because so often we grow up learning to distrust our feelings because we totally hear all the time, like, you're overreacting. Why are you being so sensitive? Why are you being so dramatic? Right? Like, the feedback that we're being given is that our feelings are somehow wrong, that we are not, that it's an overreaction. Yeah. And so, what starts to happen is that, especially as children, we feel like, well, there must be something wrong with me then because everybody else around me is giving me this feedback that the way that I'm reacting or the way that I'm feeling is somehow wrong or somehow inappropriate. And the way that we tend to deal with that just, naturally is to start to distrust our feelings and to start to disconnect from them because that's a painful experience to have for somebody to reflect back to you that what you're feeling isn't real or isn't valid somehow. So that's a sort of a survival technique that we come up with when we're children to disconnect from our feelings and distrust our feelings because we feel like that's going to be safer and that's going to get a better reaction from people. Now, what this has to do with fear and intuition is that if we're disconnected and we're distrusting, well, of course we're not going to know if it's fear or intuition talking because we're not tuned in to our feelings. We're trying to disconnect from our feelings, right? And this doesn't happen to everybody, but I've seen it happen in a great deal of sensitives, a lot of my clients, and it definitely was something that I had to deal with when I was growing up, and I had to relearn how to connect with my feelings. And so that kind of is step one. If you sense that you are someone that has come to distrust your feelings, you're really going to have to work to form a relationship again with your feelings. And more importantly, also to form a relationship with your intuition and with the voice of your inner guide. So that's a relationship like any other, like one that you would have with your partner or your best friend, right? So any relationship that you have to put time into it. You have to put attention and energy into it. And the relationship with your inner guide and with your intuition is exactly the same way. You have to give it time and energy and attention for that relationship to grow stronger and stronger and for you to get to know each other better, right? So how can you do that? The best way to start building a better relationship with yourself and your feelings and your inner guide and your intuition is to carve out intentional quiet time for yourself. And that can look like all sorts of different things, but the big thing is that you're alone and that you're being quiet. You can listen to music, but just that you are alone, that you are creating that intentional space. You can meditate, you can journal, you can go for a walk outside, whatever feels right to you, but it's creating a space where you're with yourself and you're listening to yourself and you're giving yourself a little bit of room to calm down that chatter from your daily life, that buzzing that's in your mind all the time, right? To let the anxiety come down a little bit so that you can be in that calm, centered space and you can start to hear your own voice, the voice of your soul, the voice of your intuition, your inner guide, underneath your ego logical mind and the voices of everything that's gone on in your day. So carving out that space. Journaling is huge just because it's a way for you to converse with yourself. It's a way for you to get that stuff out of you onto the page and see it in front of you. So that's a really good tool as well. So once you start getting a better handle on feeling like you have a more solid connection with yourself and with your feelings and with your intuition. Oh, and also I should mention, you can ask yourself throughout the day, and I tell people this all the time. I know I sound like a broken record, but I tell people constantly to set an alarm on your phone. And that alarm serves as an intentional stopping point to be like, where am I at right now? What am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? What is my inner guide saying to me right now? And the more that you practice that, then you're not going to need the alarm on your phone anymore, but it gets you in the habit of paying attention to your own voice. It gets you in the habit of taking breaks from the busyness of life to check in with yourself. And that's powerful, powerful work. So anyways, once you sort of are in the flow with this more and you're feeling more connected to yourself, then okay, so what happens? You have this moment where you feel fear, but you don't know if it's intuition or fear, right? So still, how do you tell the difference? So there's several ways to look at this. And one is just know that fear is going to be a lot louder. Fear is always louder. The energy behind fear is like alarm. It's anxious, it's stressful. And intuition, the energy behind intuition is more like caution. It's more like a gentle tugging, like a nagging of like, something feels off here. I don't know why, but for some reason I feel like I shouldn't do this. Whereas fear is like, oh my God, no, stop, not doing it, can't do it, back away, run the opposite direction. So the difference between the energy behind what you're feeling is going to help you to cue in and to know whether it's fear or intuition. And especially in the beginning, when you're getting used to, recognizing which one it is, you can talk it out with a friend, because it's often a lot easier for a friend to sniff out that fear than for you when you're in it, like when you're stuck in the situation. And finally, you can ask yourself, and this also, of course, works better once you have a greater relationship with your intuition, but you can, again, stop whatever it is that you're doing. Take a time out from that moment. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, go within and ask yourself, is this my fear talking or is this my intuition talking? And you'll get an answer. You'll get an answer. And the more that you are creating that intentional space to be with yourself and to be with your inner guide, the quicker that answer is going to come. And the easier it's going to be to recognize the voice that is responding to you and to say, okay, this is my intuition talking, or this is totally fear. And if it's fear, then you have to look at that. And if it's intuition, you know that somewhere deep down in your soul, you're being told not to do that thing. And that's a good thing to trust. So just to kind of recap, the first step is to really carve intentional space to show up for yourself, to show up for your inner guide, to get to know your intuition, to get to know that voice, and to have that continually. This isn't something you do once. This is something that you do continually. It's something that I still practice, and it's a non-negotiable. You just have to make it a non-negotiable. So that is step one. And then you check in with yourself and say, what does this feel like? What's the energy behind this feeling? Is it alarm or is it caution? See what it feels like. Gauge it out for yourself, because that's going to give you clues into whether it's your fear or intuition. And you can talk it out with a friend and get feedback from them as well. And I really love that my client asked me this question, because I think it's such an important thing to be able to differentiate between the two. Because like I said earlier, if it's fear, you got to push through that. You got to keep going. You got to challenge yourself on that. You got to look at where that fear is coming from. What's the limiting belief behind it, right? But if it's intuition, you have to honor that. You have to honor that, and you have to trust that your soul is telling you the right thing. So as always, I really hope that these tips were helpful for you today. Come find me in my Super Sensitives Facebook group. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. I'm on all the social medias. My handle is Miss Amber Rochelle. I would love to hear from you, and let me know how this is going for you. Let me know if there's another vlog topic that you'd love to hear from me. Come find me and tell me what's going on with you. All right, you guys. So good talking to you, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.